Little ditty about quick graphs, okay? Slope-intercept form. That's something you learned back in the day, y equals mx plus b, where m is your slope and b is your y-intercept, okay? Then you have standard form, which is ax plus by is equal to c. That's where you're not allowed to have any fractions. A is going to be positive, and I'm going to show you some shortcuts to graphing from standard form. So let's just go through some of these. Y equals 2/3 x plus 3. So 2/3 is your slope, which remember is rise over run, and 3 is your y-intercept. So remember, y-intercepts are when x is 0. So we're going to start at 0, 3, known as our y-intercept, or we can say that b starts for begin. So let's begin here at 3 on your y-axis. Slope is rise over run, so we're going to jump up 2, we're going to jump to the right 3. Remember, when you are graphing, I mentioned before that we read left to right, so let's continue to read left to right. If you want to go backwards, you just have to change it. So instead of going up 2 and right 3, you go down 2 and left 3. That'll get you another point. So down 2, left 3. We've got enough points. All we have to do now is just draw a straight line. Okay, if you can draw a straight line without a ruler, that's great. And if you try to draw a straight line and it turns out looking like a curvy road, you might want a straight edge. An ID works great for that. Okay, so why don't you try the next two really quick. So in the second example, your B or y-intercept is 6, so you should have started at 6. And then your slope should be -3/4, which means you go down 3 and to the right 4. If you want one going backwards, you have to go up 3 and you have to go to the left 4. And then all you have to do is draw a nice straight line that hits these points and you are done. The last one in this row, notice there's no b. There is an m. Y equals 3x, so your slope is 3. But if there's no b, where do you start? At the origin, because it's like saying 3x plus 0, so you start on the y-axis where y is 0. So then all you have to do is go up 3 and over 1. Remember, you are not going 3 over 0, you go 3 over 1, because 3 over 0 would be undefined. 3 over 1 is 3. So you got your points, draw a nice straight line, and you are good to go. So that's some graphing with some slope-intercept form. Here's a couple more examples where we're going to do some vertical lines, horizontal lines, and how to use standard form. So x equals 4. Now think about this before you graph it. Where is x equal to 4? X is equal to 4 right here. Now this line has to represent when x is always 4. So let's just think about this. I'll plot a couple of extra points. How about 4, 6? Yep. X is still 4. How about 4, -10? There you go. X is still 4. So x equals a number is always a vertical line. So now that you know that little secret, how about y equals -5? Well, where is y always going to be -5? It is always going to be -5 at a horizontal line at y equals -5. So, back in the day, when you did some graphing in standard form, 3x minus 2y is equal to 12, you might have had to get y by itself, convert to y equals mx plus b, but that's not necessarily true. We could do a little something here where if you could see my finger, I'd show you a little thing I call the finger trick, but this is all you really have to do. Take your finger and cover up the -2y, and you are left with 3x is equal to 12. So if 3x equals 12, what's x? X is equal to 4. Okay, then you would take your finger off of the problem, and then what you would do is you would put it on top of your 3x. And then you'd be left with -2y is equal to 12. So if -2y equals 12, what does y equal? Y equals a -6. So what did we just do there? We just found our intercepts that quickly. So this is technically, since it's x, this is 4, 0, And since this is y, that's technically 0, comma, -6. And all you have to do is plot those 2 points. So we have 4, comma, 0. We've got 0, -6. You've got your intercepts, and all you have to do is draw your little line in between them, and you're done. So you don't have to put it in slope-intercept form. You can graph straight from standard form. Here's the last 2 questions. I'm going to give you guys a few seconds. Well, you're going to pause the video and give yourselves a few seconds to go ahead and try graphing these 2. So let's see if you got it right. 4x is equal to 10. That's going to tell you that x is about 2.5. So it's kind of difficult to graph those on a little graph, but I can tell if your dot is between 2 and 3. 5y is equal to 10, so that's going to tell you y is equal to 2. And this example should look a little bit like this. And the last example, 2x is equal to 8. That means x is equal to 4. So all you had to do is graph a vertical line at x equals 4. And that concludes quick graphs, but we're not done. We're going to go ahead and talk real quick about an application problem. So it says school band is selling sweatshirts and t-shirts to raise money. So the goal is to sell $1,200. If sweatshirts profit $2.50 a piece and t-shirts profit $1.50 a piece, we need to come up with a couple equations, and then we are going to use the calculator to find the number of t-shirts. So how are we going to do that? Well, first what I'd like you to do is pause and see if you can write an equation in standard form for part A based on the problem. Okay, so the reason I said to write the equation in standard form first is because it'll be a little bit easier to come up with a equation. So why don't we just say something, let's call sweatshirts X and t-shirts Y. Can you use S and T? Yes, but we're going to use the calculator, and the calculator likes X and Y. So write the equation in standard form. Well, we are going to make a profit of $2.50 per sweatshirt plus $1.50 per t-shirt, and we need to make $1,200. So we can make that simpler and just call it 2.5x plus 1.5y is equal to 1,200. Now, in Chapter 1, you guys had practice solving for y. So all you have to do is subtract your 2.5x from both sides and divide both sides by 1.5, and your slope-intercept form equation is going to be y is equal to a negative 5/3 x plus 800. Okay, so that goes back to Chapter 1, just solving for a variable. So what are we going to do with that variable? And we're going to find out how many t-shirts we need to sell if we have a few criteria. We're going to find if only 30 sweatshirts are sold, how many t-shirts do we need to sell? If 350 sweatshirts are sold, how many t-shirts do we need to sell? And what if we didn't sell a single t-shirt? Now I know you could probably just take your information that's given, your 30 sweatshirts, and plug it in, add or multiply it by a negative 5/3, add 800, and you'll get it. But I'm going to show you a little calculator trick. Okay, so let me get that calculator up for you in just a second. So this is what we're going to need to do. You should have a TI-84 plus silver or a TI-83 or something similar to this TI right here in front of you. And here's a little tip of how to use it. We go to y equals. Now the reason why we had to change it into slope-intercept form is because that's the way your calculator likes it. So y is equal to, and we have a negative 5/3 x plus 800, and we type that into y1. Now, of course, you can graph it if you want to, but you're not going to see it right off the bat. But there's some little bit little trick for you. Just press second graph, and it makes a table. And this table is a little funny. That's because I need to mess with my table settings. So if your table settings are off, what you do is you press second window, and that's going to change it. And I'm going to set up a standard table for you. So what we're going to do is we're going to have it start up at 1, a table, a delta table means your change in table is 1. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put both of these on auto. And then you can press second table, and you'll end up seeing a good idea of what needs to be done here. So it'll tell you, remember, X is sweatshirt. So if you sell one sweatshirt, you need to sell 798.33 t-shirts, which kind of sounds funny. You're not going to go buy just the sleeve. So in order to make this work, you would just have to scroll until you found 30 sweatshirts are sold. So what you could do is you can just scroll, but I'm going to show you faster ways to do things. You could go back to your table set by pressing second window and say table start. I want to start my table at 30. And then you would just press second table again, and here you go. So that tells you that if you sell 30 sweatshirts, you need to sell 750 t-shirts to get that many sweatshirts. Okay? Now here's another thing you could do. Remember, my table was initially set on the ask. So if we go back to the table set and we go down to the independent, aka X, and we go switch it from auto to ask, we turn that on, this is what's going to happen. When you go back to table, it's not going to have anything. That's because you get to tell it what to be. So let's pretend you want to sell 350 sweatshirts. You press enter, it does the math for you. It's going to tell you that you have 216.67. Now again, are you going to go sell just 2 sleeves of a t-shirt? No, that's kind of funny. So you would actually need to sell 217 t-shirts before you make your $1,200 profit. And then finally, what if you only sold your t-shirts and no sweatshirts? Well, again, you can use the ask and just say, I'm not selling any sweatshirts. It's summertime. And that is just going to tell you that it is 800. Or all you have to do is go back and look at your table. And of course, like I said, you can do this algebraically. If you didn't sell any sweatshirts, you would just plug a 0 into your X, and -5/3 times 0 plus 800 is going to give you the same answer. But I'm just giving you a little bit of a shortcut to doing some of these problems with a calculator.